Welcome to Let's Thrive Postpartum, where we tackle postpartum depression and anxiety head on, guiding you back to yourself. Join Kelly Siebold, founder of Thrive Postpartum, and Ashley Moore, a maternal mental health therapist. Through honesty and laughter, we share expert advice and real stories. While not therapy or medical advice, you'll find education, support, and hope. Welcome to the village. Let's thrive postpartum.
Hi, and welcome back to Let's Thrive Postpartum. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Ashley.
We are so glad you are joining us this week. It's going to be an amazing conversation. And Ashley, as we're jumping into it, we're trying to be both really intentional about what we've been doing recently. I know we were just talking about what our goals, some kind of things that you and I are looking forward to. And I think all of it comes back to, being a mom and going through this, having those things to look forward to, and how are you intentionally spending some of your time and your mindset? Ashley, how's the intentions been going this week?
It's been interesting. My brain is typically kind of like a ping pong or like, what's that game that you used to play in the arcade where you hit the...
I was going to say Frogger, but that's not it. But it's like the one ball with its back and forth.
Yes.
You're a little old.
Well, I know. Whatever that game is, that's how my brain is with intentions. I get one and I'll be really good about it for a short amount of time, and then it goes away and then something else comes back in. But recently, I've been trying to be really intentional just about what I'm eating and like putting in my body, courtesy of several friends who have made some book recommendations. I was like, oh, maybe I need to think about this a little bit. So
any good books that you recommend that you've been reading about it?
Yeah. So I'm reading a great book called Good Energy right now. That's by Dr. Casey Means. She's listening. She would be a wonderful guest on this podcast to talk about physical health. Yeah. So it's a great book just about talking about like monitoring and thinking about like your glucose levels and how the food that you're putting in. I know for me, I feel big like spikes and crashes in my blood sugar. That really affects my mood and focus and that kind of thing. So I've always been trying to keep things level in that area. But this week I've just been eating lots of like just salads and whole foods, like healthy grains and breads and stuff. And yeah, I mean, I've had pasta and stuff like that, but I feel good. It's only been like 4 days, but I'm not going to be able to keep it up like this forever, but I don't know. I feel good. And I felt a little more level in terms of like, not getting those jitters or the weird feeling that happens.
And that can help your mental mood so much. Just eating foods that are a lot more stable without the huge sugar crashes. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to put that in.
I'm on, that's the wagon I'm on right now. We'll see how long it lasts. What about you, Kelly?
I probably should be more intentional about things this week, but I think it really, for me, has been trying to spend more time with my family when I'm with my family, which sounds like a weird thing to say, but I tend to, at this point in my life, get distracted by my phone probably more than I should. I used it as a defense mechanism back in the day where I could distract myself with things. And now it's really trying to, I only get to so much time with my daughter in the evenings. How do you put down the phone, put down everything else, and just enjoy that time? And it was brought on by our vacation that we just had, and having that uninterrupted family time was wonderful. So it's just been nice to remember these moments are fleeting, and how do you enjoy them when you can? Because there are moments when, we all don't enjoy them. So let's, make it a little bit more intentional, happy.
I know. That's really nice. Sometimes my husband and I will have to say, like, we'll go a week where we're like, okay, 5:00, there's a timer that's set. Like, put your phone down, no phones until after the kids are in bed. Yes. It's kind of scary how hard it is. I mean, we've talked here about like just social media and all that other stuff, but even just checking emails or like, sending out emails and other things like that, it's so difficult. Whereas like if I had to only use my laptop, I would not be just sitting there like on my laptop.
But your work email and everything you do is right there on your phone. It's accessible, which is great when you're in a virtual world. But at the same point, it's nice to walk away intentionally from that.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm sure it feels good too. Feels good for you and your husband and your daughter. Like,
It does. It's really nice.
yeah,
So if you're listening, try that. Even though you have your phone
yeah.
out for a podcast, it's still really great sometimes to put the work part away or the things that are stressing you away and spend
Yep.
time.
Yeah. Well, speaking about intentions, our guest today is Sara Holt. She is very intentional about the work that she is doing in Portland, Oregon, and I'm really excited for her to share her story. So, she is a certified nurse midwife. She's been practicing midwifery for more than 25 years. She proudly says she's caught more than 3,500 babies in her career, which is just astounding to think about.
Yes.
It's crazy. Herself is actually also a postpartum depression survivor, and her experience with postpartum depression has influenced her current practice tremendously. She offers in her company called Byenveni Baby, which, by the way, means welcome in Haitian Creole. Her practice offers mental health support. She'll do she's trying to address some of the gaps that are within the current pregnancy care model. So they have support groups, lactation consultants, gynecology, full scope midwifery services. That is all happening out of her office in Portland, Oregon. She herself, when she's not so involved in the birthy things of the world, as she says, she loves reading and biking, practicing yoga, and hanging out with her family. She's a really, really wonderful guest. I thoroughly enjoyed this interview. And yeah, Kelly,
Me
you want
too.
to tell us a little bit about
Yeah,
what's
I
going
think you're
on?
going to really enjoy this. She's one of those people where I guess for Ashley and I, when we get to speak with people on a podcast, you get to meet some amazing people. And I think Sarah's one of those that I would just say is amazing people to meet. And I think you're going to feel her energy and what she's doing. And somewhere in here, she's going to talk about how the biggest physiological change that you make as a female are the first few days after childbirth, minus death. That's the biggest time you're ever going to change. And there's not a lot that as a country we are set up to do to support moms in that. And so,
Yeah.
based on Sarah's experience with postpartum depression and all of the things that she went through, she's really helping moms kind of bridge this gap. And how do you help them in the years after childbirth to really get the support they need? She talks about what it's like when a family member has addiction, if you're struggling with being a solo parent, or even shame that you might feel if you are a healthcare birth worker and also struggling after childbirth. What does that feel like? It's just a really empowering story. There's lots of great takeaways. So, with that, let's jump in and meet Sara. Welcome, Sara. We are so excited that you are here today and telling us your story. This is going to be amazing. We can't wait for everyone to meet you and hear about you.
Yeah. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. First of all, I'm really honored to be here and to know about your program. So, this is really exciting for me. I think one of the things that has sort of guided me as nurse midwife and provider has been my own personal experience with postpartum depression. Like many people, I really spent most of my growing up years thinking about what it would be like to become a mother and someone who is a birth worker and has always been focused that way. This was really a dream for me to become a mother and to become pregnant. Unfortunately, had a lot of personal turmoil in my life that I didn't anticipate when I was pregnant. After we became pregnant, my partner disclosed an addiction that he had, which was sort of a huge shakeup. I had no idea. And he went into drug treatment. So I really didn't know much about drug treatment or addiction, things like that. But it really is sort of this huge thing that involves full family, and it's just very intense. So I felt in a way that the pregnancy was almost just put aside a little bit, which was really tough for me. I also was really new into my career as a nurse midwife. And so I had a lot of professional pressure on me as well. So after the birth, I did actually have a traumatic birth. And being a provider, I knew I had an awareness that things happen. So I guess I would say going into it, that was maybe a little bit better for the experience coming out of it because I was pretty versed in these complications that can happen. But after my son was born, I was desperately in love with him. I just scooped him up and brought him home, and my attention really was very much focused on that. But at the same time, I was basically doing it alone, which I didn't anticipate. And so I really felt strongly about attachment parenting, which is baby wearing, co-sleeping, exclusive nursing, and felt that that was going to be the best for like his developing psyche. And so just fell into all of that. And that's a very, very intense parenting style. And it's not really the easiest thing to do when you're doing it alone. So I felt very quickly like I was really losing myself. But I think as a mother, as a parent, in many ways, we expect that we're going to lose parts of ourselves. But until you really walk through that, you don't know what that feels like or what it means. And so it was much more intense than I was anticipating. So around the time that my son was a year old, our marriage was dissolving. I was thinking this morning too, I actually was selling my house, moving, and started a new job.
Which is so much on top of single parenting, getting a divorce, everything, starting a career. That is a lot for anybody on 12-month span.
I think it's funny because we look back at things and we have these guiding memories. And I was like, wow, I actually forgot that those other things were happening at the same time. And no wonder I felt so lost. I mean, I really kind of felt miserable. But in that time, I was just sort of like, doesn't everybody feel miserable? Isn't this like the way it is? You're just slogging through day after day after day. And my son is older. He's 24. And I know that at that time, I was versed in postpartum depression as much as we were in those days. But it was sort of like, okay, are you depressed? Yes. Okay, well, you'll get better. So a lot of it was sort of like, just go forth and keep going and you'll get better. And I think that it wasn't until my mother really, who has a mental health background, but didn't live near to me, she was like, you're very depressed. And I was like, oh, you are very right.
That kind of shows like the power of perspective. You know, what we hear all the time from moms is I didn't realize, like when I was in it, I had no idea. And so that outside perspective, or later on when we're able to look back, we can say, oh my gosh, like that is not how it was supposed to be. That's amazing though. Like your mom was able to provide that perspective for you.
That clarity, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for so many of us, we feel like we have to figure it out. And if we're not figuring it out, it must be a problem with us, right? We kind of take that on. And for me, it was actually this big relief to just have a diagnosis, because being a medically minded person, to me, a diagnosis meant it wasn't my fault in a way. And it normalized it in a way that was really helpful for me. We also didn't have a lot of great therapists that were focusing on perinatal mental health at that time. So I started counseling, but I don't think it was that effective for me, just in the manner that it was conducted. And it was sort of like, this is what your insurance gives you. And so you do this. And for me, the game changer was going on an antidepressant. And so that really did help me. And it sort of made me just feel a little bit more like myself, which is so hard to do. I mean, if you have postpartum depression or you're just a new mom or a new parent, it's really hard to tap into like, who am I? Who was I? Who am I now? Who am I going forwards? And to really stay anchored into your own sense of self. And for me, there was just a little bit of lightness. There was a little bit of recognition that I was still there. And that was hugely helpful for me, honestly. Yeah.
Sara, let me ask this. So when your mom came and had that conversation with you and said, there is something going on here, how old was your son? Like, how long of a process had that been before someone said, you need help, let's go find it for you?
It was a solid year. It was a solid year. And for so many people, now that I'm becoming more versed in perinatal mental health, I know that the regret is there. And that's a very common thing for people to have, because you feel like maybe I had the best of intentions, but maybe I wasn't the best version of myself that was showing up. And also the expectation that we're always going to be the best version of ourselves as a parent, as a mother, it's just ridiculous. Like, we can't, that's just not reality, you know? So I think learning that I really had something wrong, it gave me some grace to feel like it wasn't completely my fault. But let's be real, it shouldn't take a diagnosis for you to feel that way, right? So I think that finding support in people and hearing other people's experiences can help ground us in the normalcy a lot of times of perhaps you're not completely depressed, but you're untethered, you're not feeling solid, you're not grounded. So that's really important, I would say. Yeah.
I like what you just said about feeling grounded. I feel, motherhood is full of so many shoulds. We say, and I tell clients all the time, if we can just delete that word from your vocabulary, there would be some big improvements, because instead of saying like, I shouldn't be feeling this way or I should be enjoying this, it's much more helpful and gives you a place of action just to say like, I don't feel like myself. I don't.
Right.
So then what can I do about it? Like, what am I going to do? And it's hard to be in that place. And everybody, I mean, we're all in that place all the time of what we should and shouldn't be doing and feeling.
Yeah. And 24 years later, I still have a lot of questions. It's just, I think I'm a person that's pretty transparent. And that's one thing that I love. Like, when I'm working with pregnant people and postpartum people and patients, I like to share a small amount. I like to tell people like, hey, I've been there. I'm not going to tell them the entire thing. That's, beyond the scope of anything. And maybe someone might be like, that's kind of weird. But I do like to normalize the experience and just say, and that's one of the things that we work on so much with our groups here too, just being in community and knowing that what you're feeling is really super common. It's not your fault. You didn't do something. You're not defective. You're a good mom. You're a good mom. You're the parent that your baby needs. But I was so isolated during that time. And I was just lost in a lot of shame. I think with addiction and divorce, and also being in this role as a midwife where I'm supposed to be guiding and supporting people, and behind the scenes, my life is pretty chaotic. And so then there's that like imposter syndrome, and who am I to be giving people advice and that kind of thing. But in so many ways, I think a lot of us do show up better for other people than we show up for ourselves. And that's really too bad. Yeah.
Very true. We've talked to quite a few people who are either currently therapists or are in the healthcare profession who've had the same experience. And I feel like, Ashley, we've also seen how they now show up in a new way for moms, because they've been there and they've understood. They're not just reading in a textbook, but they feel how terrible it can be and how isolating. And so you show up slightly different for those moms once you've clawed your own way back out of it.
Yes.
So I can see how it's really helpful, Sara. Like, having gone for all those moms that you're talking to, I can see how your experience really does help them.
Yeah. It changes you, and it changes you as a provider for sure. Yeah.
How did it influence your experience, kind of influence and inform where you are right now in terms of life, work, that kind of thing?
Yeah. The benefit of having a long career, you see over time, like things that you think that could be done differently. And then having this experience myself has influenced me to say, like, I want to see something different for women and birthing people. I know what it feels like to be alone, to be isolated, to be struggling, and to not have a sense of community. So that was really the kind of the desire for creating Byenveni Baby, was to have a center where people could come and be accepted and be understood. And I think that, I'm just going to say it, the US healthcare system is not set up to support new parents. It's really the pregnancy and postpartum care that we provide, it's inadequate. And all of us who work in the system actually know that too. When you give birth and you birth your placenta, over the next 72 to 96 hours, your body goes through the most incredible transformation hormonally, physiologically, that you will ever go through in your life, aside from when we die. I mean, I was in a training, and that little caveat was like, whoa. And we don't see people. We don't see them in the clinic. They come in typically at 6 weeks, frequently with the baby in tow, and it's hard to get out of the house. We all know that. And they come in and we say, oh, you look great. You can have sex again. And that's almost the end of it. Are you depressed? Yeah. Okay, if you're depressed, we're going to refer you over here. And in 6 or 8 weeks, maybe you'll get an appointment. That's not okay, right? It's inadequate. And we're not doing a great job for families. So
I feel like it's those first, like right after birth, it's kind of the first almost example of really seeing how women are often, I mean, kind of taken for granted, right?
yeah.
It's like, oh, we've been doing this forever, so you're fine. Yes, our bodies know what to do, but it doesn't mean they don't deserve to be cared for.
Right. Yeah. I think you go from being pregnant and everybody having this great excitement for you. And when you do, what are you having? Can I open the door for you? This kind of elevated status to like, wow, that stroller takes up a lot of space. Why is your kid crying? You look terrible.
Yeah.
You know,
It's fascinating though to see the difference.
It's a fall.
It's a complete fall. And I think for a lot of women, that is one of you don't realize it until later, the shock, because you are so cared for in society while you're pregnant. But then as soon as you have the baby, which is, again, one of the hardest things the human body can actually do, then all of a sudden it's like, no, I guess you're just back to normal.
Right?
Never understood it.
And we're also living in a body that feels very foreign, right? All of a sudden you're like, what is this vessel that I'm walking around in? Because it's so different. And then you're learning to breastfeed, or, making other feeding choices, and just not feeling like yourself. If there was ever a time that you don't feel like yourself, it's those days and weeks, after you give birth. Of course, there's so much joy there, right?
Then I always found, I don't know if you guys, what your experience was, but the first weeks, at least you knew people knew you had a baby. You were doing something. To me, month 6 to month 12 were some of the hardest times, because at that point, everyone expects you to be back at work if you're going back to work. You're no longer a new mom, even though you are. And usually that's when the depression and anxiety are really, if it's hit and you haven't gotten help yet, you're just kind of good luck, figure it out. So I think it's realizing, moms, that this could last a while. Even if you don't have a brand new newborn, it could be up to a year later, like you were saying, Sara, before you got help, because you can still be so much.
Yeah. And at that time, I actually, even as a nurse practitioner, nurse midwife, I didn't know that postpartum depression could happen after a year. I didn't know that. I mean, our training was very minimal. So, but yeah, that time when people go back to their own lives and you're sort of trying to juggle all the things is a really challenging time. Yeah.
I've had some people compare also in a way to like the grieving process. in that immediate time, there's lots and lots of support. And then it starts to kind of trickle away, although it trickles away a little faster in motherhood. But it's kind of, and I work through with a lot of moms on that, like you're kind of in a way grieving sometimes this loss of your former self when it's hard. I think some people have an easier time in that transformation process into kind of who you are now. And some people may have an easier time with that than others. But a lot of it is kind of thinking about it in the way you do grief. Like a part of you will never be again. Like,
absolutely.
And how do we reconcile that? It's kind of hard for our brains to reconcile big changes like that.
It really is. And it's so fast. And you're not the same person. You are not the same person. You're a different version of yourself. And you're faced with how many decisions every single day, that have to do with your baby. Decision fatigue. Is your baby even sleeping? I remember when I went back to work, I think I was off he was born in August, and I went back at the very end of that year to a new job. But my language with not sleeping well, that hits my language center. And so I would be like, okay, so when we're thinking about your cervix, these are not different things than what I talk about all the time, but those gaps in my language, yeah, that was rough.
Yeah.
Sara, tell us a little bit more about what you're doing for the postpartum community in your area and what you're kind of envisioning and what you're seeing at this moment.
Yeah. So, obviously, Byenveni Baby has many different services. So we have lactation, we have full scope midwifery care, we have a sleep support, holistic sleep coach, we have postpartum pregnancy and postpartum groups. And so that is one thing that I facilitate. I also offer assessment for perinatal mood and anxiety disorders and prescription and follow-up for medications. But the groups are very, very powerful. So it's lovely if people can come when they're still pregnant and kind of get to know people, because it is very hard to walk into something as a new mom, right? To go somewhere and when you don't know people and to come in. So, but that group is for babies from being born up to a year. And we have another group that one of the moms has kind of taken on for people that have babies older than a year, that actually meets at the same time as what we used to do, but they meet out in the community at parks or play places or that kind of thing. So that's been really so cool for me to watch it, how people just were like, we need to stay together. We need to have this support network. So people come in, it's pretty informal. We have spots for babies to lay and play together. And I am a huge baby holder. So if people are comfortable with that, I love holding people's babies, and they can go to make a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and use both of their hands at the same time. So
what magic is that?
I know. And there's just a lot of understanding. There's a lot of openness, sharing struggles and joys. And sometimes we'll work with a prompt that we'll use, or sometimes we just kind of go around and everyone shares what's happened for them in the last week. And the support, we have a group chat now, a couple based on babies' ages, and it's beautiful. I'm hardly ever on there because it's constantly blowing up. They're just supporting each other. And someone was like, I'm not feeling well. And then another mom was like, I'm headed to your house with some soup. And I was like, this is beautiful. It's the community and the support that people crave. And
you created the village.
You did.
It's amazing. And we need the village. I am so proud of that part of this business. Yeah. And it's just beautiful the way people want to show up for other people. And it's that thing too for me where I feel like this is actually healing for me, because it's that whole thing, like in giving, you receive. And so for me to create this space and to have that experience of being with people at that time when I was really alone, it helps me, I think, to sort of heal in a way, even all these years later. I think for many, many years, I was just on the grind, single parenting, working. And now there's some expansiveness again in my life where I can create this. And just sort of also like having this career is, I'm like, these things need to be addressed. And postpartum support and care is a huge one. And so, the other day, I think I was sharing with Kelly last week, the other day, someone was talking about their mother leaving. And so their mother had been there for a couple of months. They were from overseas and they were, crying. And I had these huge tears in my eyes because it brought me right back to that faith. And I think it's good to honor the experience that you had, even if you're doing it 24 years later. So it's been such a beautiful thing in my life to watch this develop. So yeah, I can't remember what the question was.
But I love that Ashley said you're creating that village that was not there. And so if you're listening, in the show notes for the episode, we're going to include links that if you are in the Portland area, you can find Sara, right? Having some kind of community, whether that's in person or virtually, just helps so many of us, if you heard, feel seen, feel supported, especially if you're not a single mom and just struggling. It's so helpful. So Sara, thank you for what you're doing for so many moms, because they might not be able to say thank you right now, but once you get through it, we all see how much it helps. So much.
It's an honor. Truly. It is an honor. And I think also when I was going through my experience, we really didn't have virtual groups. And I think that what you guys provide is offering another beautiful area for people, because it can be hard for someone to walk into a in-person group. And I tell people all the time, like, there are so many groups out there. You can go and you can just listen to people. You don't even have to turn your camera on. You don't have to speak. But knowing that your experience is fairly universal, knowing that you're not alone is huge. So just that's powerful. Yeah.
I think I'm going to use that because I'm one of those people who, when I was struggling, the thought of having to be around people and to do it.
Yes.
I like to lurk. I like to hear that it's what's happening. I like to get the insights. So you're right. Just saying you don't have to have your camera on, don't be part of it, but just to hear that you're not alone and your experience is very validated and very normal is helpful.
Especially some of the areas around the country, there are all these pockets where there is a huge lack of, even just OBGYN care, all kinds of mental health care, you do feel very alone because you're looking around and you're like, there's no one even here to tell me that maybe this is or is not okay. So to have a space, any kind of space for people to come in and just hear other stories, I think is really impactful.
Yeah. I don't know that I could have walked into a postpartum group when I was going through it myself. I don't know that I could have done that. I think also being a professional in the community too, it would have been, especially because of the chaos that I was facing, and having that be, that was a big part of what uncentered me, but also I definitely was very uncentered or like thrown off by just the intensity of parenting. But it would have, I think, where my self-esteem was at that time and my feeling that it was my fault and there was something wrong with me, I think that probably would have prevented me from walking into a space like this, to be honest. Yeah.
So let me ask this. So now that you're on the other side, you're helping moms who are walking in, what advice do you have someone, whether they have a support group near them or not, what would you love a new mom who's in that thick of depression to know?
Well, the first thing is you're going to find yourself again. It doesn't feel like you will, but you will. You may be a bit different, like we talked about, but you are going to find yourself again. This is not your fault. This is a huge physiologic transformation that you go through. We are not set up to support new mothers and new parents, and this is really not your fault. Finding community, if you can, whether it's virtual or in person, will help you understand that you're not alone, that these experiences are very universal, and finding ritual, which can be so hard, but ritual is a thing that can ground us during our day. And your ritual could be that I set the baby in their crib and I walk out and I get the mail by myself. I also am a huge fan of music. Music changes mood. So knowing those songs that kind of like trigger you, put a little, what's it called, a playlist, trigger you to either feel energized or feel happy, or feel like you need to move your body. I'm Midnight Train to Georgia. I'm sorry, that song.
You can't.
I can't help but like, yeah. And I mean,
it's the best.
There was a few songs that I'm just like, okay, I got it. I need to change something. And just the little micro moments that you can find throughout your day. Reality, if you're like, okay, every Tuesday at 9:00, I am going to meet this friend at this coffee shop and do this. Is that going to happen? I mean, maybe, but it's finding the little tiny things throughout your day that can make you feel a little bit of joy. We're all reading a million books about parenting. Find a good book and listen to it. You know, if you have that 7-minute walk to the mailbox, put your book in your ear for a few minutes, something that is not related to your baby and it's just pure, like,
Purely for you.
Exactly. I think those are probably.
Sara, thank you so much for sharing your story here. I think when moms are able to share how they've made meaning out of their really difficult experience, and then for you, you've kind of transformed that into helping others make meaning of what's going on with them. And that's really the most wonderful gift that you can give someone. So thank you. Thank you for everything. I do have one question. What does Byenveni mean?
Oh, yes. Okay. I'm so glad you asked. Well, first of all, you're very welcome, because this is clearly a big passion of mine, and having the opportunity to reach people in the community and in the greater country it's such a gift for me. So Byenveni means welcome in Haitian Creole. And so in 2014, I started volunteering in Haiti and training like local community midwives or traditional birth attendants. And so Haiti just has a huge part of my heart. And so that was how I chose Byenveni. So it means welcome baby, and welcome because I want people to feel welcomed and nurtured and safe and accepted overall, because we all need that.
I love that.
What a wonderful name, and what a wonderful story from where it came behind as well.
Yeah, it's a really important thing. So yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you guys for everything that you're doing. Yeah.
In the Portland area, please check Sara out. Her links will be in our show notes right below the podcast that you're listening to. And Sara, we really appreciate you coming on, telling your story, but more than that, we appreciate all that you're doing for so many moms and the difference that you're making. Thank you so much.
Yeah, truly, it is an honor, and it's been so great to talk to you guys. And so I'm very grateful for you.
Thank you, Sara.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for Sara for telling her story and being part of the Let's Thrive community. And Ashley, we guess we'll see you next week.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
If you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful, please be sure to hit subscribe, leave us your feedback, and give us a 5-star review. For even more support, visit us at wethrivepostpartum.com/podcast to sign up for our newsletter and learn more about our community. Remember, you are not alone. With support, you can feel better. Together, let's thrive postpartum.